There have been a multitude of time-honored villains in pop culture since the advent of the talkies. Back when your great-grandma was smoking the reefer in NYC, flapping about with her bob and showing her ankles, making people upset. To truly make a hero great, they must first overcome great adversity, and without a great villain, the story would completely fall apart. Just ask Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Why is he evil? Who knows? In the last 35 years or so, we've seen the bad guys take a more interactive role as antagonists in video games, giving us greats like Ganondorf, Dr. Wily, Shao Kahn, Sephiroth, every dick from Far Cry who's exactly the same, Darth Vader, again, I think you get my point. However, there is one man who kind of gets the shit end of the stick. A man who is iconic, but trivialized and often overlooked because of how piss-easy he is to beat most of the time. A rotund, robot-toting psychiatrist's wet dream with a peen stand for power and a disdain for insectivorous mammals of the Erinaceidae family. A man that knows smart words like that because he has an IQ of 300, which matches his waistline, making it very difficult for him to find anything to wear at Old Navy. Dr. Ivo Robotnik, PhD, is the big daddy of the Sonic franchise, and when I say big, I mean big. Robotnik is also fwarkin' nuts and has a major vendetta against not only our Azure friend Sonic and his woodland pals, but also the entire world. Here is a man with all the potential to fix the American healthcare system, but instead he decided to build a borderline copyright-infringing Death Star clone. I can't say I would have done different, but shame on him anyways. Robotnik has been defeated more times than Sonic has even appeared in his own franchise. And with as many shitty spin-offs as this series has, that's saying a lot. Also, spin-offs is another super funny Sonic joke, so make sure to laugh or I'm going to have to take another trip downtown and find a bum to kick! For someone as smart as he is, Robotnik is often treated like he's an idiot by Sonic and fans alike. But I believe, nay, I know that there is more to this man than meets the eye. And that's a lot, 'cause he thick. Anyway, you're here to learn, so let me teach you. Not just about a man, but a symbol ahead of his time. A warning of what it means to tamper with the natural way of the world. So prepare yourself for a cautionary tale of insanity and megalomania that hits a little too close to home. For an allegory of power, corruption, control, and the abuse of heavy metals on the American consumer. This is Dr. Ivo Robotnik's story. The story you never knew.
No way! I can't believe this!
Robotnik made his first appearance in Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis way back in 1991. He can be described as a portly fellow who skipped leg day and arm day, but rocks the most powerful mustache of all time. What he lacks in looks, he makes up for in raw intellect. The guy has an IQ of 300, a score twice as high as Stephen Hawking, for reference. R.I.P. The guy is basically a computer. As a child, he looked up to his grandfather, a professor named Gerald Robotnik, known for being the greatest scientific mind of his generation. Unlike Ivo, Gerald was a good dude who sought to use his gifts to benefit mankind. Unfortunately, he got himself mixed up in research attempting to develop immortality, something he had originally protested heavily. However, his granddaughter Maria was dying of space AIDS, and upon realizing the potential benefits of his unethical experimentation for her condition, he inevitably complied. After the proverbial poo hit the fan, Maria died anyway, and Gerald lost his mind, vowing to destroy humanity entirely. That, however, is a story you didn't know for another time. We're talking about Ivo, who didn't care about any of that. Despite the stigma surrounding his grandfather, he thought Gerald was a cool dude and became a scientist himself, originally to benefit the human race as well. But something went wrong, and somewhere down the line, Ivo Robotnik's benevolent ideals turned to thoughts of world domination. In Sonic the Hedgehog, Robotnik had invaded South Island and turned all the animal inhabitants into robot drones, as well as polluted the environment with his fortresses. He did this in order to find the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which are crystals with mysterious powers that exist in the Sonic universe. With his new army of robot bunnies, Ivo conquered the land, but was thwarted by that bastard Sonic before his dreams could be realized. This is pretty much how it continues to go throughout Throughout the series, Robotnik comes up with a scheme, tries to get the Chaos Emeralds to either create a weapon, change time, resurrect an ancient monster, whatever, and Sonic messes up his plans. But why does Robotnik want this? What is behind his actions? What is his motivation? So let's get to the yoke of this quandary over Eggman's dealio. To do that, we need to understand intelligence. Eggman has an IQ of 300, and whether or not IQ is a good measure of that trait or not, you have to be special to get a score like that. More special than any human who has ever lived. The only person to have an IQ even close to 300 was William James Sidis, and he attended Harvard at 11 years old, but only because they wouldn't take him when he was 6. The guy had taught himself how to speak 6 languages by the time he was 5. A 300 IQ is no joke. By its definition, intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. On the surface, it's an incredibly simple thing, but in practice, its possibilities are endless. Being intelligent allows people to look at the world in new ways, to create solutions to problems, to turn imagination into reality. It allows people to analyze the world, society, personality, everything. However, just like anything, intelligence can be weaponized, warped, and exploited. Possibly the most dangerous aspect of intelligence, especially extreme intelligence, is the risk of a superiority complex. This is something Eggman bleeds into all aspects of his design and interactions. He thinks he's better than people, better than everyone because of how smart he is. Maybe he is? What do you think? A mind like Robotnik's has already figured out everything you could say in response to that question and was 5 steps ahead by the time it was even asked. It's a mind that can think its way out of everything, into anything, and calculate every outcome of every situation presented to it. But what we're talking about is a skill, and just one skill. While intelligence is important to everything humans do, it doesn't necessarily make someone better in any way. Even that William Sidis guy was arrested for participating in violent protests and spent most of his life with legal troubles and worrying about being arrested again. Not to mention, many of his intellectual accomplishments were largely exaggerated and full-on half-truths. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're perfect, and it doesn't mean you're as smart as you think you are either. There are many other things that are essential to making people rounded individuals. Social skills, intuition, charisma, imagination, feeling, and empathy are all necessary to accent something like intelligence. You need to know limits, and you need to understand others and their needs. This is something which Eggman has no comprehension of. This is where our analysis of Eggman begins to intertwine with the real world to help us understand this predicament we call life just a little bit better. Instead of looking at how he could help others who may not be able to help themselves, Robotnik began to look at them as in the way, and worse, inferior to him. We need look no further than Mr. Hitler himself, also a mustachioed gentleman? Anyway, Hitler is what happens when you start thinking other people are inferior to you. So is every slave trade throughout history. So is the massacre of Native Americans by Westerners, and also the genocide of Chinese civilians by Japanese soldiers in the rape of Nanking during World War II. History has a long list of large-scale tragedies, and I'd recommend looking into the ones I mentioned if you want to ruin your day. With this knowledge, the responsibility of anyone who heads a large-scale organization should be obvious. And when I say large-scale organization, that's a generic term that includes any institution with far-reaching control. I'm talking about governments, corporations, religious institutions, any organization that, when it flexes its power, has effects that are so far-reaching that it affects the lives of millions and is written into history books. Eggman, in all his brilliance and in spite of his cartoony appearance, is a useful metaphor for the darker side of these institutions. That's not to say that people in the high ranks of government, corporations, and so on are brilliant necessarily. Rather, the sum of the interactions between those calling the shots of these organizations is enough to make a decision-making entity that can enact large-scale plans with precise execution. In other words, when you have 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 people all thinking about what to do next, you've got a lot of brains all working on the same problem, and chances are you're going to come up with a solution no matter how complex the problem is. Eggman, however, Reefer is hyper-intelligent. He doesn't need to brainstorm with others. Robotnik is his own board of directors, his own presidential cabinet, his own parliament, his own council of cardinals. You know, the old wrinkly dudes who advise the Pope. When he has an itching to flex his control, he doesn't need to collaborate to figure out how to do it. He already knows how. And he feels superior enough to not lose sleep over the consequences for others. I admit, this is a cynical view of institutions, mostly because I don't have time to go into any positives they can bring. But even if you think I'm being overly cynical, I'm sure you'll agree the world can be a pretty messed up place. And if you're looking for a concise answer as to why, just remember how important the theme of control is in any large-scale tragedy throughout history. Whether it's mass deforestation or genocide is irrelevant. A need and an entitlement for control is what drives the ones pulling the strings. Why do you think Eggman turns the people, animals, whatever it's Sonic, he defeats into robots? It's because he can understand robots, and he can program them to do exactly what he wants them to do. He makes them his slaves to either work for him or die for him. It's dastardly, and it makes Bowser look like a punk little bitch. We're talking mass genocide and slavery here. Not to mention the whole reason Eggman wants the Chaos Emeralds is to use them as weapons of mass destruction. To force the rest of the world into submission. To bend the people to his will because he is the greatest. He is the smartest, and there is no other way the world could survive without his guidance. Ugh, superiority complexes are the worst! There is a certain kind of greed to this thought pattern, an arrogance in the idea that my way is the only way, you need me. It's abusive even, and we see it all the time. There are many allegories that describe Eggman's persona. The ideas of institutional control and a superiority complex are just two. But if you're wondering what the consequences of those look like, look no further than deforestation and politics as well. Every day, the rainforests come closer and closer to completely disappearing, taking hundreds of thousands of species of plants and animals with them. And for what? How is this even possible that it's still happening? Who's even doing it? Do you know? Do you care? The self-importance of corporations and government officials who allow this to happen for those sweet dollar bills is the same delusion that Eggman shares. And it's the delusion that allows him to think turning happy animals into robo-slaves is not only okay, but good. The idea that Eggman turns his victims into robots is no coincidence either, because the power he desires is not only real, but in the hands of people right now who don't care about you. People who make decisions for you. People who tell you what to think, how to dress, how to act, just to make a profit. This control is flexed with commercials, sound bites,
Subway, eat fresh,
news stories, and so on. They control what we consume, and so we are their robot armies, and they become even more powerful with our money, which we make by killing ourselves at our jobs for up to 60 years of our lives. Then maybe you buy those hip new jeans that are on sale. Maybe you throw a 20 into the collection plate at your local megachurch. Maybe you put your hand over your heart, recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and pay taxes like a good citizen. For real though, pay your taxes. But you should ask where that money is going! These institutions don't like you. You're in their way. Your desire to keep on living a healthy, happy life is a thorn in their side. For instance, in the 1950s, gasoline corporations lobbied against banning lead in gasoline. Lead! The same goes for lead paint companies. They knew exactly what kind of health issues that would cause the public and the environment, and they fought for it. Lead poisoning leads to lowered IQ, violent tendencies, and more health and environmental problems than you can count. These people knowingly ruined and ended the lives of millions of people, especially when you include the uptick in violent crime thanks to lead poisoning. So why would they do that? Because it was cheaper to make gas with lead than without. That's just maximizing profit, my friends. And when you maximize profit, you get more money. And when you get more money, you get more control. Yes, you're getting it. When it comes to Evo Robotnik, it seems like he originally had good intentions. I think a lot of people generally do. Even institutions start out with good intentions. And some of them even continue to have good intentions. But as you surely know, money and power corrupt. In the case of Eggman, he was born with innate mental power that ended up ruining him. Like little robot bunny slaves, we hop around from place to place, being fed information filtered through a system of checks, put in place by nameless, faceless entities that smile upon us from above. These entities have charming commercials, patriotic songs, handsome and well-spoken spokespeople, and a carefully crafted veil to hide secrets they don't want you to know, or at least take seriously. I say this not because I want you to believe everything is a lie, but because as a citizen of the world, you should understand that not everything you hear is true. The truth is a slippery thing, you see. Lies can be told without lying. Lies can be told by leaving out parts of the truth, or by leaving out the other side of the story altogether. Lies can also be told by distracting you, and when all else fails, a straight-up lie will do.
Just yes or no. Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Mr. Johnston.
Congressman, cigarettes and nicotine clearly do not meet the classic definitions of addiction. There is no intoxication.
We'll take that as a no.
Be it by force or by persuasion, control is control, and it is a tool used by those who believe themselves wiser than the rest of us. It is maintained by trickery or threat, or even an understanding that most people are too busy to care what goes on thousands of miles away. When what we do, what we know of the world, and what we have time to worry about is controlled by a bunch of Eggmen, the real question is, how free are we really? And unfortunately for us, there's no blue blur coming to the rescue. There's just you, who you decide to listen to, what you choose to believe, and the path you choose based off of those beliefs. That's the story of Dr. Ivo Robotnik. The story of greed hidden behind a humorous, appealing exterior. The story you never knew. And that's my take on Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman. You know who I'm talking about. He's a diabolical guy, and you can learn some things about the world from him. Yeah. But wait, before you go, I have something ridiculously exciting to announce. Are you ready? Great, because I'm streaming Chapter 4 of Bendy and the Ink Machine right now on Twitch with Ryan, the Real Truth Dude. Go to twitch.tv/Treesicle to check it out. We've been loving the shit out of hanging out with you guys, so come join the fun and whatever. We'll get philosophical, sure, but we're also going to be playing through every nook and cranny of Bendy Chapter 4. And if you look closely enough, you'll get to see our artistic idea crafting process in action, live. And you can talk to us in real time and call us dumb for missing things. It'll be great. Twitch.tv/Treesicle is where to be right now. Yep, right now. Come hang out. I'm Grant, and that's all I got for today. Bye everyone, and I'll see you on Twitch.